The applause echoed through the dining room while I sat there pretending not to notice how invisible I was. "Congratulations on the car, my son," my father announced proudly, raising his glass at the head of the table. My brother lifted the keys with a grin, basking in the cheers like he had just won an award. My mother dabbed tears from her eyes. "He deserves it," she whispered. Then my father turned to me. His smile disappeared. "The rent is due Sunday, Lena. 800 raise. It's time you started acting like an adult." The room went silent. Not uncomfortable silent. Expected silent. No one defended me. No one looked surprised. They all just stared at their plates while my brother admired the car keys dangling from his hand. And in that moment, I realized something painful. I wasn't sitting at a family dinner. I was sitting inside a system built to celebrate one child while quietly draining the other. So I stood up calmly, cleared my plate, and walked to my room. No yelling, no dramatic speech. I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, my documents, and the notebooks I used to write in late at night when no one was listening. Before leaving, I placed a note on the fridge. "Don't worry about the rent. I won't be here Sunday, or ever again." Then I disappeared. The funny thing about leaving is that people only notice your value after they lose access to it. For years, I had been the dependable daughter. When my mother got sick, I cooked meals and managed the house. When bills piled up, I worked extra shifts. When my father lost money, I quietly helped cover expenses. When my brother failed classes, I tutored him for free while sacrificing my own time and dreams. But none of that earned love. It only earned expectation. My brother was celebrated for potential. I was punished for reliability. The first night after I left, I rented a tiny guest room across town. The paint peeled from the walls. The mattress creaked every time I moved. The bathroom window wouldn't close completely, but it was peaceful. No shouting, no criticism, no lectures disguised as parenting. I lay there staring at the ceiling and realized something shocking. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The weeks that followed were brutal. I worked mornings at a cafe, freelanced online at night, and taught language lessons over video calls until my voice felt numb. I sold old clothes, my guitar, textbooks I once used to help my brother pass exams he barely cared about. Every cent mattered. But for the first time in my life, every hour I worked belonged to me. That changed everything. Slowly, I started building routines that had nothing to do with survival and everything to do with becoming someone new. I woke up before sunrise, drank tea on the rooftop of the guest house, started journaling again. I wrote about the dinner table, about silence, about being useful instead of loved. And somewhere between exhaustion and healing, I found my voice. Back home, the messages started arriving. "Your mother's crying. Your father says you're being dramatic. We need help with the bills." Ah, so now they noticed I existed. Not because they missed me, because they missed what I provided. I never answered. 2 months later, I signed the lease for my first apartment. It wasn't glamorous. The pipes rattled, the kitchen tiles were cracked, but sunlight poured through the living room window every morning like a quiet promise. When the landlord handed me the keys, no one applauded, no proud speeches, no celebration toast. But as I stood alone inside that apartment, I whispered softly, "Welcome home, Lena." And for the first time, my name felt like it belonged somewhere. One afternoon, I passed my brother on the street. He was driving the same car my father had proudly gifted him. Music blasting, window down, laughing with friends. But I noticed something nobody else would have. Stress, the forced confidence, the exhaustion beneath his smile. Because before I left, I had seen the unpaid insurance notices sitting on the kitchen counter. The car wasn't freedom. It was debt disguised as love. And eventually, the illusion collapsed. A few weeks later, my mother called from a blocked number. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Your father had to sell the car, she admitted quietly. We're struggling with rent. Could you help us? Just until we catch our breath? I closed my eyes. Where was that compassion when I was drowning in that house? Where was that softness when I worked myself sick trying to keep everyone afloat? I'm sorry, I said calmly. I'm no longer part of that arrangement. Silence, then a trembling whisper. So you're really gone. I looked around my apartment, the tiny kitchen, the stack of freelance projects, the peace I had fought for. Yes, I replied softly. I really am. And that same month, something unexpected happened. I received an email from an international writing mentorship program in Lisbon. I had applied months earlier in secret, too afraid to tell anyone because my family treated dreams like inconveniences. The message read, "Congratulations, Lena. You've been selected." I stared at the screen in disbelief. My entire life I had been told my writing was pointless, too emotional, unrealistic, a waste of time. Now it was opening a door across the world. I accepted immediately. No announcement, no farewell dinner, no need for permission. I boarded the plane quietly and left Brazil behind. Lisbon changed me. The city felt softer somehow, sunlight spilling over old rooftops, music drifting through narrow streets, strangers smiling without expecting anything in return. For the first time, I existed in a place where I wasn't measured by what I could provide. I poured everything into writing. Stories about daughters who became invisible inside their own homes. About silence, mistaken for weakness. About women who learned to survive without applause. One evening after a reading, a publisher approached me. "You write with honesty," he said. "People need stories like yours." That conversation became my first book deal. I almost cried walking home that night. Not because I finally succeeded, but because I realized I had never been the failure my family made me feel like. I had simply been unheard. My book was called Fridge Notes, a story inspired by the message I left behind the night I walked away. When it released, readers connected to it immediately. Messages flooded my inbox from women around the world. I thought I was the only one. You gave me courage to leave. I finally stopped apologizing for existing. The book spread faster than I ever imagined. Interviews followed, speaking events, international invitations. And suddenly, the quiet girl ignored at the dinner table was standing on stages telling the truth she used to whisper only to herself. One night during a live interview, a journalist asked, "Do you regret leaving your family?" I smiled gently. "No," I answered. "I regret how long I believed I had to earn love by sacrificing myself." The room fell silent, not awkward silence, understanding silence. Months later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a photograph of my old family home, empty. A "for sale" sign stood in the yard. There was also a note from my father. "We thought you were the fragile one. Turns out you were the foundation." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not because I hated him, but because healing doesn't always require reopening old wounds. Sometimes closure is simply no longer needing their approval to breathe. Years later, I founded a writing residency for young people escaping emotionally toxic environments. We offered mentorship, housing, and therapy support. I named it the Fridge Project, because sometimes the smallest goodbye becomes the first sentence of a completely different life. At one event, a young woman approached me in tears. "I left home last month," she whispered. "I left a note on the fridge, too." I hugged her tightly because I understood what she meant. Leaving isn't always rebellion. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's the first honest thing you've ever done for yourself. People often ask how I found the courage to walk away. The truth is, I didn't leave because I was fearless. I left because staying was slowly teaching me to disappear, and I finally realized something important. Love should never feel like rent you have to pay to exist. So, yes, I walked away from the dinner table where my brother was celebrated and I was charged for taking up space. But I didn't lose everything. I found myself. And in the end, that became worth more than any house, any car, or any approval they could ever offer me.